That Tuesday afternoon unfolded in a way I could never have anticipated. As I drove into the driveway of our suburban home, my mind was tangled in the remnants of a long workday, but there was something else lingering just beneath the surface, a tension that felt both exhilarating and wrong. My name is Jack, and at 28, I found myself still under my parents' roof, caught in the delicate dance of longing for independence while saving every penny for my own sanctuary. It wasn't perfect, but there were moments that felt like stolen glances, like the freedom from mundane chores that lingered in the background. As I stepped out of my car, the warm summer air wrapped around me, igniting a flutter of anticipation in my chest. The sun dipped low on the horizon, its warm glow stretching shadows that whispered secrets across the meticulously kept lawn. The faint echoes of laughter drifted from the backyard, a melody that stirred something deep within me, igniting a warmth I couldn't ignore. It was likely my stepmom, Lydia, lost in a moment of joy with our golden retriever, Max, a scene that felt both tender and a little too close for comfort. Lydia had woven herself into the fabric of our family for nearly 5 years, her presence both cherished and complicated. She was in her early 40s, younger than my dad, and her presence ignited a spark in our home that had dimmed since my mom's passing. Initially, I pushed her away, but as days turned into nights, I found myself drawn to the way her warmth wrapped around me, igniting a longing I never expected. I slipped around the corner of the house, the fabric of my tie slipping from my fingers as I moved with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. The scene that unfolded before me in the backyard left me breathless, a moment suspended in time. There was Lydia, perched on the grass with her legs folded beneath her, her honey blonde hair flowing like a waterfall down her back, catching the light in a way that made everything around her fade into the background. She wore a delicate sundress that accentuated her curves, revealing a side of her I had never truly seen before. Max danced around her, his tail a blur of excitement as he placed a cherished tennis ball at her feet, a silent invitation filled with unspoken longing. Just give in, Max seized the moment. Lydia's laughter rang out, a sweet sound that danced through the air as she playfully tossed the ball across the yard, a moment of joy tinged with something deeper. Her laughter danced through the air, light and free, igniting a longing deep within me. I stood there, captivated, my heart racing as I watched her laugh and play with Max. Her movements held a certain elegance, and the joy radiating from her expression drew me in completely. As Max came back with the ball, Lydia looked up and our eyes met, a spark igniting between us. Her smile ignited something deep within me, a spark that sent my heart racing. Jack, my heart races at the mere thought of you. You're back sooner than I expected, she said, her voice laced with a hint of surprise as she beckoned me closer. A wave of anxiety washed over me as I drew closer, an unfamiliar sensation given how at ease I typically was in her presence. Hey, Lydia, I managed, my voice trembling with an unspoken tension. I decided to slip away from work a little earlier today. She brushed the grass beside her, a silent invitation for me to join her in that moment, where everything felt electric and just a little bit wrong. I'm truly relieved you made that choice. Come join us. There's an undeniable spark in the air today, and Max is radiating energy like never before. For a fleeting moment, I paused, heart racing, before sinking down onto the grass beside her. The subtle scent of her perfume lingered in the air, a quiet reminder of her presence. Max dashed over, letting the ball tumble between us, his gaze flickering back and forth, filled with unspoken anticipation. Lydia's laughter echoed in the air, a haunting melody that sent a shiver racing down my spine. I believe he's hoping you'll take the plunge this time, she said, her gaze sparkling with mischief. I grasped the ball, a shiver of distaste running through me as I felt the slick, warm residue of the dog's affection cling to it. Okay, Max, I whispered, my heart racing as I prepared to let it fly. Take a chance. The ball flew through the air, a fleeting moment of joy, as Max chased after it, his heart racing with a mix of exhilaration and longing. As we sat there, tossing the ball for Max, I couldn't shake the feeling of Lydia's presence next to me, an electric tension hanging in the air. Our movements occasionally brushed against each other, a subtle but unspoken awareness hanging between us. I stole fleeting looks at her, convinced she was oblivious to my gaze, captivated by how the sunlight danced in her hair, the delicate arch of her neck, and the gentle rhythm of her chest as she inhaled and exhaled. What was unfolding within me? This was Lydia, someone who had become an unexpected presence in my life, stirring emotions I couldn't explain. For years, she had been just my father's wife, a figure in the background of my life, until the moment everything shifted and the lines blurred in ways I never anticipated. But in that instant, it felt like I was discovering her all over again. The realization sent a shiver down my spine, a mix of exhilaration and dread coursing through me. "You seem lost in another world," Lydia murmured, her voice a gentle intrusion into my swirling thoughts. "Tough day at the office, huh?" I blinked, suddenly aware that my gaze had lingered far too long. Yeah," I whispered, warmth flooding my cheeks. "There's just so much swirling in my thoughts, I suppose." She tilted her head, her piercing blue eyes searching mine with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. "Do you want to share what's on your mind?" I averted my gaze, the weight of unspoken words heavy in the air. How could I ever put into words the whirlwind of emotions swirling within me? These unexpected, tumultuous feelings that were on the verge of consuming me. Lydia's fingers brushed against my arm, sending a shiver down my spine. Her touch was soft, a soothing caress that lingered in the air, charged with unspoken tension. But it sent a thrill through me that felt anything but innocent. "Do you realize that I'm always here for you, no matter what?" she whispered, her voice a soft caress that lingered in the air. In the quiet moments, when the world fades away, two souls find themselves drawn together, their hearts racing with a mix of longing and fear. Each stolen glance ignites a fire that feels both exhilarating and dangerous, as they navigate the delicate line between desire and the unspoken rules that bind them. The thrill of the unknown pulses in the air, making every encounter electric, every touch a secret shared only between them. In this tangled web of emotions, they discover a connection that defies logic, leaving them both breathless and yearning for more. I took a deep breath, my heart racing as I nodded. "I understand," I finally managed to whisper. "Thank you, Lydia." We lingered in the quiet, the air thick with unspoken words, as Max collapsed between us, breathless from his frolic, a reminder of the tension that hung just out of reach. The sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting a warm glow that ignited the sky in passionate hues of orange and pink. The evening was stunning, yet I found myself lost in thoughts that overshadowed the fading light. My attention was consumed by the woman next to me, her presence igniting a whirlwind of feelings I never expected to confront. As the light began to fade, Lydia stretched, arching her back in a way that sent a rush of heat through me, igniting a longing I knew I shouldn't feel. "Maybe we should go inside," she murmured, her fingers delicately sweeping the grass from her dress. "I should probably begin preparing dinner now." I nodded, my heart racing, unable to find the words that danced on the edge of my lips. We both stood there, and for a fleeting moment, the air between us crackled with an undeniable tension, so close that I could feel the heat emanating from her skin. As our eyes locked, a spark ignited in her gaze, sending my heart into a wild flutter. But then the moment slipped away, and Lydia began to turn back toward the house, leaving a lingering ache in the air. She beckoned, glancing back with a hint of mischief, her steps quickening as if the distance between them held a secret all its own. I inhaled sharply, attempting to regain my composure. "Yeah," I whispered, my voice trembling, "just a breath away from you." As I stepped into the house behind Lydia, an undeniable shift hung in the air, a tension that whispered of unspoken desires and the thrill of what could never be. The easy bond we once enjoyed had transformed into a charged atmosphere, a thrilling yet daunting realization that lingered between us. I observed her graceful movements in the kitchen, the air thick with unspoken tension as she began to prepare dinner. Her movements were fluid and captivating, drawing me in with an intensity that felt both exhilarating and dangerous. Text the way she reached for a pan, The delicate motion of tucking a strand of hair behind her ear ignited a spark of longing that felt both thrilling and wrong. "Jack!" Her voice broke through the haze of my thoughts, pulling me back to reality. "Could you please set the table? It would mean a lot to me." "Of course," I replied, a flicker of relief washing over me, grateful for the chance to escape the tangled emotions that threatened to consume my mind. As I arranged the plates and cutlery, a flutter of uncertainty danced in my chest. Was it just my imagination? Or was there an undeniable tension crackling in the air between us? Or had Lydia sensed it as well? The way she gazed at me in the backyard, her fingers brushing against my arm, left me questioning. Were these fleeting moments hints of something deeper, or merely illusions crafted by my restless mind? I shook my head, attempting to dispel these perilous thoughts that lingered in the shadows of my mind. This was Lydia, the woman who stood between desire and duty, my stepmom. Whatever emotions stirred within me, they were not meant to deepen, not meant to cross that line. But as I stole a glance at her, our eyes locking across the kitchen, I felt an undeniable tension that hinted this was just the beginning. A fire had ignited within me, a longing that refused to be silenced. The remainder of the night unfolded in a haze of furtive looks and unintentional brushes of skin. Each time Lydia's fingers grazed my skin while she handed me a dish, and every moment our gazes locked across the dinner table, a familiar spark ignited within me. It was maddening, this unrelenting pull of her presence, igniting a fire within that felt both thrilling and wrong. After dinner, as I assisted her with the dishes, the kitchen seemed to shrink around us, charged with an undeniable closeness. We circled each other in a delicate ballet of unvoiced longing, the atmosphere charged with emotions left unexpressed. "Text, I think I'm going to turn in early," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper, the weight of unspoken feelings hanging heavy in the air. With a hint of mischief in her eyes, Lydia nodded, a small smile dancing on her lips as she prepared for the early start ahead. "Absolutely. Rest easy, Jack." As I ascended the stairs to my room, an undeniable sensation washed over me. Her gaze lingered, heavy with unspoken words. I paused at the top of the stairs, locking eyes with her for a fleeting moment, a silent farewell before retreating into the solitude of my room. That night, as I lay in bed, my heart thudded with thoughts of Lydia, each one more intoxicating than the last. The way she appeared in that sundress, the melody of her laughter, the warmth of her hand resting on my arm. I sensed that rest would elude me for a while. Little did I realize, this was merely the start of a path that would alter my world forever. A tumultuous path of awakening, longing, and a love that dared to defy the rules, challenging everything I believed about kinship, fidelity, and the depths of my own emotions. As I lay in bed that night, rest slipped through my fingers like sand, leaving me tangled in thoughts I dared not entertain. My thoughts spiraled back to that afternoon, dissecting each fleeting glance, every electric touch, and the weight of our whispered words. The logical side of me fought to push away these thoughts, whispering about the forbidden nature of my emotions. Yet my heart, oh my heart, was whispering a melody of its own. At some point, I must have drifted into a restless sleep, jolting awake as the soft light of dawn crept through the edges of my curtains. My dreams were alive with images of Lydia, igniting a fire within me that left my cheeks flushed with a mix of longing and shame. With heavy eyelids, I descended the stairs, yearning for the warmth of a strong cup of coffee to awaken my senses. As I stepped into the kitchen, time seemed to stand still. Lydia stood at the counter, her back turned to me, lost in a soft hum that seemed to weave a delicate spell around the room. She wore a silk robe that hugged her every curve, her hair a wild cascade atop her head, exuding an irresistible allure. My breath hitched, a rush of unspoken feelings swirling within me. "Good morning, Jack," she whispered, her eyes glinting with a mix of warmth and something unspoken as she turned to face me. "You're awake before the sun has fully risen." I nodded, my heart racing, unable to find the words that danced on the edge of my lips. As she passed me the mug of coffee, her fingers grazed against mine, sending a shiver down my spine. That brief touch left me unsettled, my thoughts racing with questions I couldn't quite answer. "Having trouble finding rest?" she inquired, her gaze probing into mine, filled with a mix of worry and something unspoken. "Not really," I confessed, taking a sip of my coffee to mask the flutter of anxiety within me. Lydia leaned against the counter, her robe slipping just enough to tease a glimpse of her collarbone, igniting a spark of longing in the air. "Are you all right? Your mind appeared to wander last night." I took a deep breath, my heart racing in my chest. "I'm fine," I whispered, my heart aching with the truth I couldn't reveal. "It's just a matter of work, nothing more." She arched an eyebrow, skepticism dancing in her gaze. "Jack," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath as she moved closer to me. "Do you realize that you can share anything with me? Don't you? I'll always be by your side, no matter the circumstances." The depth of her voice, the raw worry reflected in her gaze, it overwhelmed him completely. Before I could hold back, the words spilled from my lips, charged with an intensity one never expected. "It's always been you, Lydia. You're the one pulling me away from everything else." Her eyes widened in surprise, and for a fleeting moment, I feared I had crossed a line. But then, in the depths of her gaze, I caught a glimpse of something else. A spark of longing, perhaps? "Jack," she breathed, her voice trembling with unspoken longing. "What do you mean by that?" I placed my coffee mug on the table, my hands trembling with a mix of anticipation and fear. "I don't know," I confessed, "but just yesterday in the backyard, everything shifted. Your presence lingers in my mind, and I can't shake the feeling that there's something more between us." Lydia held her gaze on me, the air thick with unspoken words, a tension that felt both exhilarating and dangerous. Then, with a hesitant grace, she extended her hand and intertwined her fingers with mine. "Jack," she whispered. I felt it too, longer than I'm willing to confess. Her words lifted my spirit, yet my thoughts spiraled with the weight of what they meant. "But what about him? Isn't this just so wrong?" Lydia let out a soft sigh, her thumb gently tracing circles on the back of my hand, a touch that felt both tender and charged with unspoken longing. "It's tangled," she confessed. "My father and we've been drifting apart for some time, yet this moment still feels impossibly heavy." I nodded, feeling the gravity of our conversation settle between us. "What are we supposed to do now?" Without a word, Lydia moved nearer, her hand gently cradling my cheek. "I don't know," she whispered, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "But I can't pretend these feelings don't exist any longer." She looked at me, her expression filled with unspoken words, creating a moment of tension that neither of us could quite define. It began softly, with a touch of uncertainty, but soon ignited into a fervent blaze as years of suppressed longing surged forth. As I pulled her closer, my arms encircled her waist, and her fingers wove through my hair. When our lips finally parted, we were left gasping for air, the moment hanging between us like a secret. "Wow," I managed to whisper, my heart racing. Lydia chuckled gently, her forehead brushing against mine, a moment suspended in time. "Yeah, wow," she actually said yes. But the truth crashed down on me, and a wave of guilt washed over my heart. "What about him?" I pleaded once more, the burden of our choices pressing heavily upon me. Lydia sighed, pulling away just enough to create a breathless space between us. Yet her fingers lingered in mine, refusing to let go. "Your father and I have been distant for a long time," she admitted, a sadness creeping into her voice. "For months, I've carried this secret, aching to share it, yet unsure of how to reveal my heart to you." A wave of anger washed over me, directed at my father, only to be replaced by a rush of relief that our choices weren't as treacherous as I had first believed. "I can't believe this is happening," I whispered, my fingers tightening around hers, the weight of our unspoken feelings hanging in the air. She shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "Don't be. It's not your fault." The weight of unspoken feelings hung between them, a fragile barrier that neither dared to cross. And somehow, it has sparked the bravery within me to finally confess what I feel for you. We lost ourselves in conversation for hours, diving deep into everything. Our marriage to my father, the emotions we had kept hidden, and the implications for what lay ahead for us. It was a whirlwind of feelings, charged with an undeniable tension that lingered in the air, making every moment feel both thrilling and a little bit wrong. As the sun climbed higher, we reached a pivotal moment. We would guard our emotions closely for the time being, allowing ourselves the space to navigate this delicate situation before risking everything we know. It wouldn't be simple, we understood. Yet the bond we shared was impossible to overlook. As the days passed, Lydia and I found ourselves entwined in a delicate dance, each moment charged with unspoken tension. On the surface, everything seemed perfectly ordinary. We moved through our everyday routines, exchanging glances and words with my father, just as we always did. But there was an unspoken tension lingering in the air. Yet beneath the surface, an undeniable spark lingered, a hidden connection that turned every moment into an exhilarating dance of unspoken desires. We grasped at fleeting seconds, a brush of fingers that sent shivers down our spines as we crossed paths in the hallway. A lingering gaze exchanged over the flickering candlelight. Whispers in the dark, stolen moments while my father toiled away into the night. Every fleeting moment felt like a stolen treasure, a testament to the intense bond that pulled us together, despite the shadows lurking around us. One evening, a month after that electrifying first kiss, we found ourselves alone in the house, the air thick with unspoken tension. My father was supposedly away on a business trip, but there was something in his eyes that hinted at a deeper truth, a secret that lingered just out of reach. Lydia and I shared a silent understanding that he was with someone else, yet we chose not to linger on the thought. Instead, we savored the fleeting chance to be close, our hearts racing with the thrill of secrecy. We were nestled together on the couch, the flickering light of the movie casting shadows around us. Yet our focus was lost in the unspoken tension that hung in the air. Lydia nestled against me, her head softly resting on my shoulder, and I felt every electric connection between us, each point of contact igniting a fire within. "Jack," she whispered, her gaze searching mine as she tilted her head, a hint of longing in her eyes. "Do you feel joy in your heart? Is this what you wanted? Are you with me?" I gazed down at her, captivated by her exquisite features and the raw vulnerability reflected in her eyes. With a heart full of unspoken desires, I replied with a truth that felt both exhilarating and dangerous. "Do you feel it?" Her smile was a soft invitation as her fingertips grazed my jaw, igniting a spark that felt both thrilling and dangerous. Overwhelmed with joy, she whispered, her heart racing with a hint of fear. "What we're embarking on, it's fraught with danger. If your father knew," I whispered, pressing my lips softly against hers to quiet her fears. "I swear we'll find a way no matter what." Together, as our kisses deepened, I couldn't help but marvel at how instinctive this felt, how perfectly it fit, even with the unorthodox nature of our connection. Being with Lydia was like finding my way back to a place I never knew I missed. That night, we surrendered to each other for the first time, lost in the moment on the living room couch. It was a whirlwind of longing, delicate yet intense, a connection that felt deeper than anything I had ever known. As we lay entwined in the aftermath, a profound realization washed over me. I was undeniably in love with Lydia. As the weeks slipped into months, the intensity of our hidden connection grew stronger. We mastered the art of secret encounters and lingering looks. Yet, as the days passed, the weight of concealing our passion started to take its toll on us both. It was Lydia who finally dared to speak of it one night, as we lay entwined in the dim light, her head resting softly on my chest. "Jack," she whispered, "I believe it's time we faced your father together." I froze, my fingers pausing in their gentle caress of her hair. "Do you really mean it?" I asked, my voice trembling with unspoken longing. She leaned on her elbow, her piercing blue eyes locked onto mine, igniting a spark that felt both thrilling and dangerous. "I'm certain," she declared with unwavering conviction. "My heart belongs to you, Jack. I long to be with you freely, without the shadows of secrecy between us." And your father, he has a right to uncover the hidden truth. I nodded slowly, aware of her truth, yet a heavy weight settled in my chest at the thought of the conversation that loomed ahead. All right, I'm in. We'll face this together. The following day, we had a difficult conversation with my father, bringing long-buried emotions to the surface. His response was a whirlwind of intensity, leaving everything in its wake transformed. Voices rose in a tempest of anger, sharp words cutting through the air, laced with the weight of betrayal and the looming shadow of severed ties. It was tumultuous and raw, yet somehow, a haunting tranquility enveloped the house in the aftermath. It became clear that my father had been searching for an escape from his marriage for what felt like an eternity. Though pain and anger coursed through him regarding our connection, he confessed a sense of relief in finally laying everything bare. In the weeks that followed, everything shifted between us, igniting a spark that felt both exhilarating and dangerous. Lydia walked away, her heart heavy as she took the first step towards freedom. I discovered a place of my own, yearning for distance from the family home and the weight of its memories. The air was thick with unspoken words, each family dinner a delicate dance of glances and half-hearted smiles, where tension lingered like a shadow in the corners of the room. Yet, amidst the chaos, Lydia and I held on tightly to one another. Our love, forged in the heat of family disapproval and the weight of societal judgment, only deepened with each challenge we faced. We were aware of the challenges ahead, the whispers and disapproving glances from those who couldn't grasp the depth of what we shared. Yet, our hearts were resolute, determined to navigate the complexities together. Now, as I sit here writing this, it's been a year since we dared to reveal the truth about us. Lydia and I share a small house on the outskirts of town, where every moment feels charged with unspoken feelings and a hint of danger. My bond with my father remains complicated, yet there's a flicker of hope as we navigate through the tension together. He's begun seeing someone else, a move that has softened the air between us, yet it stirs something deeper within me. Reflecting on that day, I could never have imagined how everything would change under the warmth of the sun in the backyard. As I observe Lydia gliding through our kitchen, her soft hum echoing the memories of that pivotal morning, I realize that every moment has led us here, and I wouldn't alter a single detail. Our love ignited in a way that defied the ordinary, confronting trials that could shatter a less resilient connection. Yet it exists, profound and undeniably ours. And that's everything that counts. As Lydia turns and meets my gaze, her face ignites with that smile I've cherished deeply. A quiet calm washes over me, yet there's an undercurrent of something more, something that stirs the heart in ways I can't quite explain. No matter what lies ahead, no matter the obstacles that come our way, I am certain we will confront them side by side. Love is a fierce battle, a choice made in the shadows, where every stolen glance and whispered promise ignites a fire that defies the odds. It's about crafting a world together, rich with passion, trust, and an unbreakable bond that thrives against all challenges. As I move closer, wrapping my arms around her, our lips meet in a passionate kiss. In that moment, I realize that this love, this connection we forged, is precisely where my heart longs to be.